I'm sorry, what?
Once again, I must thank you, Eliza. The purgatory I suffered. I knew nothing of comfort, nothing of rest. The living shall know the pain of death I have had to endure.
What?
Eliza, when was the last time you heard about a nice ghost needing to suffer like that?
But I thought he wanted to repent. You said you regretted how you treated mankind. You wanted humanity.
Humanity? Mankind? Those are your business. Mine is the devil's.
Eliza, anyone who actually regretted their actions would think they deserved punishment. They wouldn't try to escape it or shift the blame to someone else and, oh, I just made myself sad.
Then allow me to put you out of your misery!
Linkara! Nimue, seal the supply room! So, I probably owe you an apology?
Yeah, mine first. I'm sorry. I should have done more to try to make amends. Whether you decide to stay or leave after this is over with, know that I will always consider you a part of this family. And as such, try to do right by you.
I appreciate that. What are we going to do about him?
Not sure. Give me some time to think about that while he's sealed up.
You're gonna review something, aren't you?
I'm gonna review something.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where Yuletide candles burn. Linkara's gonna give you all a present you've not earned. Not Mensch, you're not the brightest. Frank Miller, you're off the nice list. If you're a comic writer who misuses a license, your gift will be returned. Digging through the shelves for the kind of comic books that would turn Santa's elves into common crooks. He reads them and he weeps while down the chimney creeps. Bill jammers with a Marvel trade to watch him when he sleeps. Linkara, he built a snowman, now it has a hole. Linkara, 8 maids, a milking and a young blood troll. Linkara, only one Dickens homage away from going chestnuts. Linkara, this Christmas comic sucks.
It's Christmas at round zero. The button has been pressed. The
Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Sweet Merry Christmas, everyone! Luke Cage is a delight, especially early Luke Cage. While Power Man has appeared quite a few times scattered throughout this show's 10-year run, if I had to pick an episode that this was following up on, it'd probably be that time Luke Cage and Iron Fist teamed up with a Willy Wonka-looking Doctor Who to defeat the Daleks. Because that's the kind of fun and sanity you can expect from a lot of Luke Cage material. And as I sit and contemplate the evil force that is currently occupying my supply room, besides the one that usually occupies it, we should have a Christmas story that's a lot more fun. So let's dig into Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, number 7. The cover's pretty good, featuring Luke Cage busting out of chains. I don't know why Jacob Marley was complaining so much. These aren't even very good chains. While showing a guy pushing a destruct button that sets off an atomic bomb that can be seen from a nearby window. What's funny is that if you didn't have the Christmas tree on the mantle, or him saying Merry Christmas, there would be nothing to indicate that this is a Christmas comic. And hell, if you cut out the tree, he could just be quipping Merry Christmas without being involved in the season at all. Also, the button is labeled Destruct, but facing the wrong side. Sure, he's probably just looking at the console the wrong way, but I love the idea that he accidentally hit the console's self-destruct button, and that explosion outside has nothing to do with this. We open in a clinic where Luke Cage is hanging out on Christmas Eve. It's been a hard year for the man now called Luke Cage. Tell me about it! Although I'll tell you guys about it next week. It began in a cell in a hell called Seagate Prison. The pay-per-view Cell in a Hell was not as popular among wrestling viewers. and seeks its end in New York, where the man contemplates a snowy Christmas Eve and looks forward to some long-due relaxation with his girl. But this is Luke Cage, and he and relaxation haven't yet exchanged business cards. Which is a real shame. The hospital's a great opportunity to network. Then again, it's hard for Luke to relax when right outside the window is some dude beating a child with a cane. Fortunately, Luke Cage is not the kind of hero to let this crap go, so he runs out. Claire, start rolling some bandages for you and the doc. Be some bruising coming up. And the best health insurance in the world ain't gonna cover what I'm gonna do. The man, still hitting the poor child, yells at him. Mark your elders, will you, churl? I'll improve your manners for you. Now say please and thank you as I beat you to death. And I'll improve your face by changing where your nose grows, darling. I always thought noses would look better on foreheads. The guy tries to counterattack with his cane, which naturally does nothing to Luke Cage. The guy is in shock at this, since the blow should have been hard enough even to kill, but Luke just snaps the cane in half like a twig. Don't use that punch on people, though. Leastwise never have. Luke Cage kills somebody, they gotta be some kind of snake. I mean, have you seen that PSA with the drug dealer who turns into a snake? I'm saving some hurtin' bombs for that thing. Ain't met no more'n worms so far. Hear me talking to you, worm? I love how I could replace Luke Cage with Mr. T in this scene, and it would make just as much sense. The guy surrenders, and Luke wants to know why the hell he attacked the kid. Oh, the young ruffian attempted to hoodwink me when I purchased a newspaper from him. He demanded 15 cents. And overpriced newspapers are clearly justification enough to murder a child. Luke, of course, tells him that's what the newspaper costs, but he insists it shouldn't be more than 2 cents. Man, if this was taking place a few decades later, that guy would go on a friggin' killing spree. Noticing how weird this guy is acting, Luke asks for his name. The name is Marley. I'm a dealer in, chains. You'd think this is a reference to A Christmas Carol, but really, he just panicked and looked at Luke Cage's belt. He runs off. Now, if we have nothing further to discuss, I have an appointment with my partner, and he's very stingy with his time. So, before he went to see Scrooge, Marley proved to be just as much an asshole in death as he was in life? Cat's like bad peanut brittle. All nuts. I'd say he's more like an almond joy. Terrible. Luke brings the kid into the clinic. Nearby, Marley observes this. Well, there are guys who'd help somebody in trouble. I'll have to see more of you, Cage, before the city dies. I'm gonna beat up every person in this city if they charge more than 2 cents for anything. They patch the kid up, and Claire, the woman Luke Cage is dating, comments that it sucks to be so broke that you have to sell newspapers on Christmas Eve. Ain't so bad. Makes Christmas Day that much shinier. Yeah, sure, I had to stand in the freezing, snowing winter with a bunch of heavy newspapers that I can't set down lest they all get wet. But hey, I got an extra 15 cents! Cage says he speaks with experience on that part, given how poor he was growing up, and fair enough, just seems like it's still a pretty crappy sentiment. Be out in the cold on Christmas Eve in the vain hope that you can have a tiny bit more cash on Christmas Day. Anyway, the doctor, who was the one who made Luke Cage as super strong as he is, pulls Luke aside to warn him about a journalist investigating the clinic, and if he digs too deep, he might learn about the experiment. You know, stuff relating to other issues. Later, Luke and Claire are walking home. It's been a hard year for Luke Cage, and there's so fragile a wedge between what he began it as and what he is now. When he started the year, there was no tiara. Now it can be taken away at any moment.
Noah certainly acts oddly at times, Cage. He tenses up every time you drop by the clinic.
Well, let's face it, Claire, I kind of overburden him with patience. The two have some banter and romantic fun in the snow, even making out in it as a policeman stops by to cockblock. Ahem. No parking zone, officer. No sparking zone, if you're old enough to get that joke. Ah yes, when people used to have sex with sparklers. The good old days! After the PDA police goes away, the two come across a beggar without legs, Luke giving him some cash. Cold out tonight, man. Right on. Course, I got less of me to freeze than I used to. Before I went to Nam. Lost him in combat? What? No, bicycling accident. He has a PTSD flashback, thinking enemy soldiers are just around the corner. When Luke Cage tries to bring him back to reality, he suddenly pulls out a machine gun and fires. Luke shields Claire from the bullets. What? You're not human! That proves you're the enemy! Damn the Viet Cong and their bulletproof commandos! Luke snatches the gun out of his hands and tries once more to try to get him to calm down. Claire is afraid Luke will try to hurt the guy, since in his current state he's not responsible. I know he ain't, Mama, but I know what is. Freaking guns! To be fair, Luke, it wasn't a gun that said he had a secret plan to end the Vietnam War. He does include the dudes that sent him over there to use them, so maybe he just means war and conflict in general are responsible. It's just with the emphasis on freaking guns, it implies the guns themselves created the Vietnam War.
Colt 45, semi-automatic. Play-Doh.
Ain't never gonna be no peace on Earth if all the small people keep trying to act like big people, and the big people keep trying to act like God.
There is logic in what he says.
He tosses the remains of the guns back down to the guy. I'm sorry for what happened to you, man, but you might have killed somebody tonight, and you would have been a whole lot sorrier. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave you to your trauma-induced hallucinations out here in the freezing cold. Merry Christmas! I'd question where he got the gun, or why Luke doesn't report the guy. Sure, it's entirely possible cops would make the situation worse, but even without a gun, the guy is shown to be a bit dangerous and needs something more than to remain in the street. But it turns out this is not really a homeless veteran, but that Marley guy from before, who lights up a Marlboro. Nice speech, Cage. It's definitely lucky I ran into you back at the clinic. Technically, you ran into his fist. You're the one man who might make me give up my plan. But I'll have to check you out one more time, I think. It's a good thing there are no other superheroes in New York who could stop me. After spending some time partying at a bar, the two head for home, and Claire wonders the same thing I've been wondering about. Luke's exposed chest in the cold, snowy winter. Hey, superhero, don't you want a coat? It must be 5 below out here. Funny about that. Don't really feel temperature anymore, just like I don't feel pain. It's actually kind of a wide-awake nightmare where I have no sensation on my body. Sometimes I lie in bed and cry for the lack of human contact. I can't even feel your body against me when we make love. But hey, no coat! High five! I cannot feel the high five. Claire wants to know more about his background, but then this dude leaps off of a wall in front of the two. He's wearing a bright yellow outfit, a green vest, red gloves, kind of grayish-purple thigh-high boots, and bright red hair.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
He threatens them with a gun and tells them to go into an alley, and for whatever reason, Cage complies, though he wants to know why the heavy-handed way of doing a mugging. Mugging? No, companion. This is only a security check. Let me see your identification card and authorization to be on the street. Eat dirt, man! What you playin'? 1984? Big Brother is watching, kids! And he looks ridiculous. Of course!
Of course!
This is Christmas 1984, and beginning today, all citizens must carry authorization. Our totalitarian future is a lot more colorful than I expected it to be. He points out that he's armed with a laser gun, and Luke of course realizes that might actually do some damage to him, so he tackles the guy before he can shoot. During the ensuing brawl, Luke realizes how weird a coincidence it is that he's encountered 3 aggressive people like this in one night, and suspects there's more going on, though the guy denies it. Varlet! My madness gives me invincible strength! Man, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged version of Tristan Taylor did not have a happy ending. Oh yes, I know I'm mad, but it makes me the man to get things done. If there's one thing the criminally insane are known for, it's getting their projects completed. Luke punches him once, and he runs off like a weenie. So much for his madness giving him invincibility. Maybe what he meant to say was, my madness gives me invincible running away powers. Anyway, Luke gives chase, the two crashing through some buildings until the cops get called. Fortunately, Luke has won through and drags the guy out for them. The man, huh? Honest now, we weren't sparking back there. I mean, I've tried kissing guys with beards before. Too scratchy. He explains everything to the cops, who take the guy away. However, soon after he and Claire resume their walk, they find the police car crashed into the curb, the cops explaining that the guy got the drop on them and escaped. Realizing how serious this is getting, Luke sends Claire away in a taxi while he follows the fresh footprints of the guy. Claire tells him to be careful. Appreciate the concern, but the day Luke Cage don't know enough to stay careful without being told, that's the day they lay pennies on my eyes. Which is just ridiculous because the fare for that also increased to 15 cents. They should be putting a dime and a nickel in there. He identifies the unique footprints of the guy versus others in the snow and follows them along until he comes across a charity Santa worker. He asks about the guy he's pursuing, but the Santa is of course really him and knocks Cage out. We cut to some time later where our hero is chained up and is met by the villain, who's dressed up like a really burly executioner. And yeesh, look at how scrawny his legs are compared to how beefy his arms are. I guess he does lift, bro. And he has a dagger in the middle of his belt aimed right down at his crotch. Like, seriously, if the guy gets a boner, he's in for a bad time.
Ha 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 ha! Your costume is ridiculous!
And with only a few pages to go, the guy finally explains himself. See, Cage, I love the past. Because in the past, people cared about people. In the 19th century, a man beating a kid would have drawn a crowd to stop him. Okay, 1, not necessarily. 2, for over half the 19th century, slavery was still legal. So I'm kinda iffy on the whole they cared about people thing. Today, I didn't think anybody would care. Well, maybe it's because there was literally no one else on the street. Also, you prefer it when people in the past cared about other people, so you beat a child half to death because he didn't want to play into your stupid 19th century LARPing session? Anyway, he continues by saying he disguised himself to prove his theory, but then Luke Cage came in, not only saving the kid, but proving himself to not be afraid of a larger threat. What's more, he showed compassion and resolve in the other situations that were meant to test him. And indeed, as Luke Cage acknowledges, this is basically a kind of loose, twisted version of A Christmas Carol with the three spirits of Christmas. The past with the 19th century jerkwad, the present with a Vietnam vet, this was made in 1972 after all, and finally the future with some fascist soldier. Rather clever, if bizarre. Of course, Cage realizes he must have some other plan in mind, so the guy presses a button and reveals a hidden computer. May I present to you the EMIAD 230 computer, in control of one U.S. Army atomic bomb. The Tandy computer whiz kids are looking at this thing and going, psh, 1 atomic bomb? A TRS-80 computer can handle 10 bombs! And they'll be in color. He explains he stole the bomb back in 1946 when he worked for the Army. Just stole it right after the war thanks to dismantling it and carrying the components out slowly. I wanted that bomb because even then I knew what was coming. No one had learned anything from the war. Mankind was determined to become less and less civilized, and I intended to end mankind before it could end itself.
But why? Brackett is no mad dog killer. He is after something.
Nothing like wanting to show how people are terrible and unkind than by friggin' nuking people on Christmas. 26 years later! Like, how is this supposed to make them civilized again? Luke tries to get him to stop, both by pointing out the fact that he already admitted he was crazy, which is not exactly a strong argument, dude. By that admission, he doesn't have to make sense when he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And he also points out how he passed all his tests and asks if that is enough. However, he says that Luke Cage is just the exception to the rule. The rest of the world still sucks, and he only brought him here since they're like-minded individuals who know the truth and should die together. However, before he can set off the bomb, why does he have the computer if it's just a remote detonator? Was that a thing with nuclear bombs in the 40s? Something seems to be coming down the chimney, and it distracts the guy. Cage is able to escape and beat the crap out of him. He then proceeds to crush the detonator remote. No need to worry, Luke. It wasn't gonna go off anyway.
Best before November 1959.
The guy who drops down from the chimney is a thief who admits he was casing the joint for weeks to steal stuff and thought nobody would be home. Frankly, serves you right for leaving your atomic bombs out in the open for anyone to steal. And so our comic ends with Luke embracing the guy as they watch the sunrise. It's been a hard year for Luke Cage and for the world. Both have survived, and Cage has even gotten a little more together. Maybe. But the world hasn't changed a bit. Considering the alternative was the world changing via nuclear explosion, I don't see that as a bad thing. This comic is okay for the most part. I think the story would have been better served by the guy not admitting he's crazy, since it kind of undermines him as a villain. Honestly, it's not a bad motivation, even if the way he goes about his plan is ridiculous. As a Christmas story, it's interesting because of the various ways Luke Cage exemplifies the season. Try to help the less fortunate, discourage conflict, have fun with friends and family, that kind of thing. Mind you, this comes about because a lunatic is looking for a decent human due to his hatred of the modern world, because people just aren't as nice anymore, when by every indication, he's the one who's an asshole. Hypocrisy with the villain is fine, it's just add on that he is a friggin' nuke that he carried out of a military base piece by piece, and it gets a little ridiculous. It is a more unique take on the Christmas Carol motif, especially since it's the ghosts themselves that are trying to change as opposed to their target, wanting proof of a good man, and maybe that should have been the focus instead of suddenly having the bomb. Maybe he was planning on killing himself or going on a different sort of murder spree. Instead, it's that Luke Cage issue where a guy wants to nuke New York on Christmas. Still, Luke Cage gets some good moments, both beating the guy up as well as showing romance and kindness, and that fits in very well for the season. It's not the most Christmassy of stories, but it's definitely true to the season, and the artwork is pretty good. And of course, I wish nothing but the best for you and yours this holiday season. Next week, we end the year with some missed opportunities, and I hope before then you don't miss any yourselves this Christmas, especially ones where you get to spend time with those who love you. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. Mr. Baxter!
I believe you call yourself Linkara. Names have changed over the last century.
So of a lot of things. Tell me, Mr. Baxter, what did you do for a living back in the day?
My trade was blood. The dealings of my trade are but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean that I shall bring to this world.
Yeah, evil hasn't really changed. But good has. We found some new ways of dealing with your ilk.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
You've not a chance or hope of escaping your fate.
I beg to differ. Terrence Baxter, you will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first 2 right now. Yeah, Eliza told me what she did to summon you back here. Pretty clever, actually. You're kind of in an in-between state right now, between your type of ghost and fully back to the living. It kind of makes you immune to the normal ways we would deal with a ghost, but not to other ghosts.
Kind creature, I realize truly the mistakes I've made. Please have mercy.
For your own sake, look to see me no more. I'm sorry again about all this.
No, don't be. Look, Eliza, I can't guarantee that it wasn't me who did those things. I don't think it was, but even if it wasn't, I hurt you and I never tried to make up for that. After everything that happened with Linksano and Aaron, I talked about how we needed more forgiveness around here. But the truth is, forgiveness is earned. It's worked for. And if you'll let me, I'd like to start working to earn your forgiveness.
I'd appreciate that.
Well, this has been a different sort of Christmas.
What are you talking about? We had a family coming together, friendship and bonding, and most especially, a traditional Christmas ghost story.
Well, and the other thing to remember is that it's not just Christmas. Happy birthday, Eliza.
Thanks. You didn't give me a present, did you?
I will knit you a little sweater.
You don't know how to knit.
I will commission someone to knit you a little sweater.
A jacket would be cooler.
They will knit for you a little jacket.
Merry Christmas, Linkara.
And may God and ghosts bless us, everyone.